Okay, so I took the roll pan off the car in order to weld it up, and also to primer the inside, because once I weld this thing in there, there's not going to really be a way to get it painted, so I'll probably put a finish coat on there except for the edges where I still have to weld it. Anyway, what I ended up doing is I have this little transitional piece here that on the 71 bumper, and there's a little where the license plate is. It comes out and it goes back in, and I noticed that on the 71 the roll pan doesn't conform with that feature in the bumper, and I always wondered why that was. But while I was doing this, it dawned on me that you filled your gas up. Gas tank was underneath the car in the back, and the filler neck was underneath the license plate. And the reason for this, most likely, not being filled in, and while there was a gap in the rear bumper, and let me just bring you over here and show you that gap, so you know what I'm talking about here, is this gap right here was probably because you're filling gas, and then you take the nozzle out and gas leaks. Well, gas can drop straight to the bottom, or to the ground I should say, instead of going into the roll pan. So if you have it built like I have, going around and filling up this gap here, obviously when you drip gas out of the nozzle, it would go down into the roll pan. But this being filled on the side here, there's no need for that, and it kind of looked funny to my eye, so just made a little transition panel there, nothing big. But as you can see, I've started on this filler panel for the deck lid itself. I stood here and studied on this for quite a while, and finally just decided to start hammering on and see what happened. I may end up cutting it all back out, who knows. Well, but so far I'm happy with what I'm doing here. And what I've done initially is I put in some spacers here, 3/16, and then on this side here some 1/8 inch plexiglass, and that gives me something to build to maintain my body gap lines on both the sides and on the bottom. And then I bent a little safety edge around this piece and then built it over 90 degrees so that it would conform to the angle of the bumper. Then I put this piece in here to extend this ramp that comes off of the Challenger and down this way. This will be the underneath flange. The skin will fit over this, and then it will fold over the back side of this rim here. So this is a 90-degree piece here that's been shrunk and stretched to mimic this shape that I want here. Gives me room for my little winglet on the top of the deck lid. I went ahead and put just 3/8 of an inch material welded in, these rods, to extend out from the structure that's existing right there to hold this rim and everything in place. It's all triangulated now. Later on, hopefully, if everything works out, when this is opened up, I can take and fill in these panels and maybe have some punch holes in some steel panels on the bottom side to make a closure and make this look a little neater. But for now, I just needed something to keep all of this rim and this from moving around. And so that's where that is right now. It's going to be a challenge to make these panels because, as you can see, this has more curve to it than this does. This is almost a straight line. There's just a small house top of this. It comes out, peaks here, and goes back in, but very slightly. And this has a big long sweep, so I'm going to have to blend this panel into this panel to get this all to look right. And so I'll be playing with that with some sample pieces and until I get the shape to where I like it. There'll be some curvature in it because there's a crown in this deck lid here. It goes from side to side. So again, it'll be a little bit challenging. It'll be made in two pieces. And ideally I could just seam it up. My finger keeps throwing this out of focus, but ideally, hopefully, I could just seam it right at this very edge. That'll be concealed by the little winglet that'll be adding later on to this back of this trunk lid. So that's where this sits right now, and I'll keep you up to date as progress is made. Okay, you can see I've established a perimeter now that is pretty solid. This gives me a basic skeleton to work with as far as the substructure. Now I have to go about filling in all of these areas here with sheet metal. And the reason I have to do that now is because I'll have access to the top side to paint that before I proceed with the outer skin. I'm going to stand back here a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. There you go. Okay. Alright, so this is how this is going right now. You can see that the frame has been established around the perimeter, and some of the side panels have been filled in already, as you can see here. I'm going to just open this up here, and we can take a look from the bottom side. Alright, let's raise this up here. Alright. You can see these starting to fill in the side panels here and create the closure. This one here, I still have some small holes here to fill in, and then there'll be bottom panels closing this area and over here and over here, and that'll establish the entire closure for the bottom of the deck lid. And it's gone a little slow because I have to paint things with this weld-through primer before I can put anything on. So this may not look like it's a lot of work that's gotten done, but this first piece here, just between the pattern, making the patterns and actually making the piece and fitting it up and welding it in and finishing it off because of all of these different angles that had to be taken into account. This was about a 4-hour process just on this one side. So, you know, sometimes the smallest things seem to take the longest. But anyway, that's where it's at right now. I'll just take this whole thing and close that down right there. And once that's all done, then I'll start to turn around and get involved with the top skin and fit that all up. But like I said, I have to fill in these bottom panels over here, and then I'll paint the entire interior of this because it'll be inaccessible. It won't be viewed, you won't be able to see it, but I still have to protect it from any kind of corrosion or water infiltration. So, alright. Okay, I just got done sanding and putting a little quick primer on here to get an idea of what this is going to look like, and I'm not entirely unhappy with the way it turned out. I thought it was going to look very awkward here on the end, being it was so much longer than the actual deck lid right here. But it turned out to be not as complicated looking as I thought it would be in the beginning. So I've got both of these closures down, and now it's time to start working on the bottom panel, which I've got that started over here. I'm back and forth as to which way I want to attach it, though, so I still got some ciphering to do on that. And then I have another panel to go on the other side, which is a little bit smaller. But I still haven't gotten back down on the ground to do the roll pan. But I'm having a good time standing up right now. Anyway. Okay, so here it is with these bottom panels welded in. I plug welded them. And I still have to do a little flaring on these holes here to strengthen them up a little bit. So that's the bottom. Now, let me just close that there. Inside, went around and laid some seam sealer in. Any place where there might be an issue there of the panels coming together. So I took my build blocks, my spacers out, and hopefully I I can get the sheet metal skin that's going to wrap over this to leave me some consistent openings. So, like I said, once I get those holes flared, I'll paint the inside with some finish paint, because it'll be inaccessible once I put the skin on. And so that's where I'm at with that. And I'll just pop this back up. Yeah, I was expecting this to be a lot harder than it was, but yeah, that's what I ended up with. I would have probably liked to have had bigger holes there, but I don't have well, I have bigger hole saws, but I don't have the flares necessary to flare anything larger than that. And tried to get a hold of some today, and it's like 900 weeks coming from England or something like that. But everything's getting harder and harder to get these days. Anyway, that's where I'm at with this. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the panel that I'm working on underneath the car that smooths out all those irregularities. It's below the roll pan. And I mentioned before that I was going to have to do something to keep the air from getting in underneath this panel, because this is towards the front of the car, would be where I'm standing right now. So if you're under the car, this is what the air sees. And you can see I've done made a paper pattern here in order to create a dam, keep the air from getting up underneath of this panel and causing any issues that it would cause. God only knows. But what'll happen is I've made this is the piece I've made out of steel that will replace this paper pattern, and I have ends to make up also over here. And when this is finally installed, this is not something that'll be taken in or out, or there's nothing to be maintained under this panel. This is merely just to create a smooth visual effect on the back to hide the trunk bottom and make it look more uniform. So it's not something that's going to have to be taken off and on. So what I'll do is I'll come back with a thin bead of black silicone, and I will silicone this right to the bottom of the floor pan of the trunk. Now, should this ever need to be taken off, you could always just take a razor knife, cut the silicone, then unbolt this panel, and it'll come right off. But there's some forward tabs over here with some Tech screws that hold it up to the bottom of the floor, and then some 1/4-20 bolts that go into the trunk, and they basically get some there's some captured nuts in there that are already welded in. And yeah, it's just merely a decorative piece, but it's a little labor intensive here, because I've got to create this little air dam in the front to make sure that, you know, air coming underneath the car. I mean, the other alternative was to make some sort of a vent, but this area here, again, is all uneven and asymmetrical. I couldn't figure out a way to make it look good, and best just to keep the air out of it altogether. Now I'm going to have to also drill some holes across this leading edge over here. This is on the this would be the bottom of the car, so that any water that might get collected up in here would have a place to go and would drain out of this pan. Anyway, that's that. Okay, so I did got these dimpled in, and that makes this whole panel a little bit more rigid. So I'm done with all that. I've got the top side sealed up with seam sealer where it's needed, and also painted out with some black primer, and that should just neaten it up a little bit inside. So if you're looking through those holes, if you could see inside, it's going to be dark once the skin's on there. So just you know, get everything coated. Anything that might have been exposed metal inside there is just covered with one color now. So it's ready for me to start on this upper skin here, and I'll be doing that probably next. Maybe not. No, I still have to finish the roll pan. Probably do that next. Been doing a little bit, like I said, up and down on the floor doing this panel, and you can see I have this profile welded in that fits all the irregular shapes that are on the trunk floor. And you can see how much higher it is on this side
than it is on that side, so it's very irregular. And so there's the drain holes on the bottom side drilled in, and I'll be using a countersunk screw, 1/4 20. It'll look something like that, but so it flushes up, and to attach it there. But also there's these tabs here, which have a couple of Tech screws going through the bottom of the floor of the trunk space. Anyway, I'm going to end this video here, so I don't go on too long. And the next one, like I said, I should be finishing up the roll pan and moving on to those upper skins. We'll see how far I get.